This week, we're taking our digital art and we're making it real as we create this wrapped bouquet greeting card together. Links to everything you'll need to complete this project are right in the video description, so let's get started. I'll be using an A6 card template for this, and I am using my printables template. I'll leave a link right in the video description to this specific template, but I'm also providing a 4x6 card if you'd rather just play around with the template, kind of see how it works. If you're looking for more templates, that link is right in the video description. And for this, since we're making the wrapped flowers, we need to just take up a little bit of space for our design. I've turned my canvas. This is how the printable canvas comes. All you have to do is rotate it and then you can work in vertical orientation. So this is the front of our card. I'm going to create the illustration right up here in the top half of the front of the card, and then we will print it out and then we can craft everything around it. So for this, you can really use anything that you would like. You can draw it from scratch. You can use any brush set that you would like. For me, I'm going to use my Bouquet Maker brush set as well as my messy watercolor brush set because I want a template for my flowers. That way I can rearrange them and kind of see how they look before I begin. And then I just love the watercolor texture. So let's head into the Bouquet Maker first, and I'm going to go into the flat supporting florals. And there are a bunch of different flower options here. That way you can kind of get a feel for what it will look like without having to look for photographs. So I'm going to use supporting 15 for this, and the biggest thing here to remember is that you want it to be somewhat vertical because this is going to go kind of like this. So usually I do just like a really rough sketch. So I have an idea of where my flowers need to go. So looking at it like this, I need my flowers to be more condensed. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we'll just add in some foliage around and behind the flowers to fill everything out. Since these ones are touching, I'm going to leave those ones as they are, but I can move these ones pretty easily. So I'm on this layer right here with the artwork, and I'm going to grab my selection, make sure freehand is selected, and I can just draw around these and then just move them a little tighter in here. And it's okay if they overlap right here. This is just a template for us to work from. Since these are wrapped flowers, I need to make sure that I'm leaving enough room for the wrap on both sides. So that's forcing me to make my flowers a little smaller than I usually would. And we'll just place this about center. If you're ever curious with a template like this where you don't have a direct center on your canvas, because obviously this is my center line right here, a quick way to make sure that you're centered, just create a brand new layer, grab your selection and then your rectangle tool, and I can just drag this out and then just fill it with a random color and then select that and move it over. And I could just tap this over once and then I'll be fine. All right, now we can paint this in. I'll show you how I do one of them and then I'll just speed up the video because honestly, you can do this however you would like. It's totally up to you. But if you're using similar brushes to me or the same brushes, I want to show you what I do. I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab my light pink color and head into my messy watercolor brush set. Messy Extras Tuesday Water Brush is my favorite watercolor lettering and paintbrush. So what I'll do is just paint inside the lines. That's all we're doing right here. And this is a wet on dry brush. So if I lift up my stylus, I'm going to get double opacity on this. I want to make sure that I'm keeping a consistent texture and opacity on this, because if I lift it up and then I drew on top of it again, you can see it gets denser, and I like that really light texture here. That one's all set. I'm going to create kind of a bloom effect for the stamen. So I'll create a brand new layer, grab my red color. I'm going to switch to my Messy Blooms and grab Bloom 08 and then just tap that in and then reduce the size and place this right in the middle, and that feels good. I am going to add rhinestones to the stamens of each of these flowers, so I don't want to get too detailed in here because I'm going to end up kind of covering it up anyway with my rhinestones. So that one's all done, and I like keeping everything on separate layers, so I'll create a brand new layer for the next flower and continue working. So I'll speed up the video, and when my flowers are complete, we'll talk about foliage, and then we'll be ready to print. My flowers are complete now, so let's fill the rest of this out with some foliage. And honestly, this can be super simple. Don't be too hard on yourself or try to make everything super perfect. A lot of attention is going to go on the crafting aspect of this card. So even if you're using flowers that have really basic shapes, kind of like these ones, it's still going to look wonderful when it's finished. I'm going to create a brand new layer now and drag it all the way to the bottom of all of my layers, and we'll create that foliage. And when you're doing this, just make sure that you have foliage that extends above and below your flowers, because that wrap needs to come around it And that just gives us a lot more flexibility when we're crafting around our design. I've got two different greens in this color palette, and I'll make this color palette available in the video description if you'd like to use it too. So I'm going to grab my lighter green first, and I'm still using the Tuesday water brush. It's pressure sensitive, so it actually works really, really well for foliage, especially if you're using a really simple foliage type like I am with pointed leaves. What I'm going to do is just bring a line up as a stem, and let's just extend it out here a little bit. So we'll pretend that it's kind of coming over here. For the pressure sensitive part, you're just going to go light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you can adjust your brush size if you'd like to have it bigger or smaller. This is feeling pretty good to me, so I'm just going to do the same thing off of each one. It does take a little bit of practice. I've made these so many times, so I've gotten pretty quick at it, but if it's not coming fast to you, don't worry. This is definitely something that you just need to practice a bit, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to draw foliage super fast. And then maybe we'll come off the side a little bit, but just be careful because the wrap is coming on the side and we don't want to extend the foliage so far that the wrap then needs to be thicker than maybe we want it to be. So we want to show a little bit on the edges, but not too much. Up at the top and the bottom, going a little extra is totally fine. All right, I'm going to create a brand new layer now, and we'll switch to the darker green color and kind of do the same thing, filling in any remaining gaps. We've got our flowers all complete now, so now it's time to print. But before we do, if you're using this template, you'll want to come into your layers palette, scroll all the way to the top, and turn off your outline and turn off your bleed. So all that will print out are your trim marks. So you've got your cut and your score lines right here. And that's exactly what we need for printing. I have double-sided matte photo paper loaded into my home inkjet printer. It's not a special printer at all. It's a very basic printer, but it prints wonderfully on double-sided matte photo paper. So that's what I've loaded in there, and I'll leave a link to that paper right in the video description. Come up here, hit the wrench, share, choose TIFF, and then down here you just want to select print. I've got my printer selected right here. I want to make sure that letter size is selected and then tap on media and quality and change the media type to photo, head back, and then under print quality, just toggle this all the way up to best. Head back to your options and just double check that those things were saved. So media and quality, photo, best quality, letter size, our printer selected, everything's good, we can hit print. We've got our print all set now, so now it's time to cut it out. First, we'll want to add in our score lines, so just line up those center lines. I am using Cricut's score tool, but you could use the backside of a utility knife, a pen that doesn't work, or a bone folder. Next, it's time to cut it out. So I've got a utility knife. I just feel like it's a lot safer and more stable than an X-Acto blade. So I'm going to line up my cut lines, but make sure that you don't cut all the way through the paper because then you'll cut off our vertical cut lines, and we don't want to lose these yet. We got our card cut out, so I'm just going to fold along that score line, and there we go. I'm going to flatten it back out. And the next thing I want to do is add in my rhinestones to the stamens. And once again, there's a link to everything from this video right in the video description. So these are the rhinestones I'm using. I really like the variety of smaller rhinestones that this came with. So I'm just going to dump a bunch out. And then this is my rhinestone picker tool. I'm using this liquid fusion glue, but I've added it to a smaller bottle that has a small gauge needle at the end, so I can be a little more precise with the glue. So I'm just going to add in, let's see, maybe 3 dots to this top one. And you can put them anywhere you want. And then with the picker tool, I will find gold ones up here. And I'm going to do the little ones. And I want to add in one large one on the left side, so I've got a little more contrast, and then we'll add some like gold and then regular pearl type rhinestones. And then for the side facing one, I want to add a bunch of just cute little ones. There we go, we got our stamens all done. Now we can focus on our wrap. So I've got some leftover tissue paper, and it's gold as part of a multi-pack, worked out kind of nicely. Now we need to cut it. And in order to cut it, you want to kind of come all the way up to the top flower, all the way down and about halfway. So right about here. So this is the rectangle that I need. Okay, I've got my 2 rectangles here. So you could just like roughly scrunch it up and make a wrap that way. or you can make it with cleaner lines, which is what I like to do. So it'll make it feel like you're doing origami kind of, but it gives you those really clean folds, which I really like. So the way that I fold this is I take this top corner, and if you have a side that's shinier than the other side, you want the shiny side down, and then you fold it. So this is going to be the edge, the kind of flap that's hanging off of the wrap. So I make it a pretty long flap, and then I almost come all the way to the edge right here and then fold. And I've got a bone folder to make those creases a little stronger. And then you want to flip it over, and now you're going to go halfway. So I'll just fold. So it's this point down here, but it's to this point up here. So it's just halfway. And then we're going to fold it back. But this time when you fold it back, you're going to follow this edge. So that's going to be your next crease. And then when you fold it back, you're going to follow this line. You can just keep going back and forth, following that edge, basically like a zigzag, until you run out of material. All right, so this is what you end up with, but make sure you have it facing the right way, because the shiny side is our flap side if you have a shiny side too. And then we can kind of line it up where we want it to go. So I'm coming right to the middle of this, where I see where I want this to extend. So I need it to go straight down instead of angling like this. So this is where I'm going to want it to stay, right around here. So I'm right next to the rhinestones, but not fully covering them. And I want a little space over here so it folds nicely. And this is why we extended our stems further down here, because we didn't want just white space right here. So that's why that's important. So I'm going to come to about here, and then I'll just fold it so I can get a straighter edge right here. And then this little piece I can always fold back if I need to. So this is this side all taken care of. We'll repeat the same for the next side, but remember that we have to go the opposite direction for this one because it's going to be facing the opposite side. So we'll fold that first triangle, flip it over, fold it halfway to match up with the points, and then crease, and then continue going back and forth with that zigzag until you use up all the material. And now we want to line it up. So this one's going to go about here, and we'll want this one to fold down as well. Okay, so this one's not quite as clean as this one. So the reason why I didn't adhere this one is if this one didn't come out as pretty looking, I can tuck it behind it. So this one will go down first, and then this one can cover it since it's a cleaner edge. So that's the way that'll be. So get them all lined up the way you want them. I'm going to use glue tape to adhere the tissue paper, and actually it works really well. So I just fold back the top flap, put just a little bit of glue, and then press it down, and you're good to go. So I'll repeat the same thing on the left side. And then for the bottom part, you just need a very small amount. So I'll first put it on the card and then adhere that first flap. And then I'll put a little bit on that flap for the second flap. So it's glued down just the way I need it. So for this, I'm going to use some baker's twine, and I have bookbinder's needles, so they're a lot larger than regular needles. I'm going to choose a pretty large one, just so I can fit that baker's twine through it. I'm going to poke some holes in the card where I want to create my wrap, and I'm going to do a couple that are kind of high and then one that's lower. So I'll have one on this side, and then I'm going to try and match them as best I can. Once I have those first top two, I will add in the second one and then the third one, and I am spacing these a fair amount of distance apart because the holes get a lot larger once we poke them. And I'm going to push through on this side to make them a little bit larger. So I want the end of the thread to be on the outside of the card, so the front of the card. So I'm going to come through this bottom right one first. When I get to the end, I'm going to leave a fair amount so I've got some room to tie a nice little bow. So I'm going to come through the back and then come to the top one on the other side. And then go to the other top one. And then come to the second one on the same side. You could really do this however you want. You don't have to follow the same pattern, but this is the one that I use. I'm going to come through the other side. And then once I have all three of those levels done, I'll put my needle up and under the top thread and then bring it down underneath the bottom thread so it kind of pulls everything together really nicely. And then one last little detail that I like adding in is I had some spare pink paper, so I'm just going to create a little tag on it, and it can say whatever you want it to say. So all I'm going to do is cut the corners off of this, and then I'll use the awl again and poke a hole through it. And then write your message. We'll string our little tag through, and then I like putting glue tape down just to hold it in place. And then I'll tie a little bow, cut off the extra baker's twine, and our wrapped bouquet card is complete.